I bolted upright, my heart racing as I backed away from the window. The Doppelganger's eyes followed my every movement, its smile widening in a grotesque parody of my own. Trembling, I reached for my phone and dialed Sarah's number, my fingers fumbling over the keys. She picked up after the third ring, her voice groggy and confused. "Jack, what's going on? It's the middle of the night." "It's here," I whispered, my voice shaking. "It's right outside my window." The Doppelganger. There was a brief pause, and then Sarah's voice came back, more alert and panicked. "What? Are you sure? Did you call the police?" "I don't think the police can help with this," I replied, glancing back at the window. The figure was gone, leaving only the empty night behind. "Oh, I think it wants something from us." Before Sarah could respond, a loud crash came from the living room. My heart skipped a beat, and I slowly crept towards the sound, the phone still pressed to my ear. "Sarah, stay on the line. Something's in my house." I heard her gasp on the other end. "Jack, be careful." I edged towards the living room, every shadow seeming to writhe and twist with malevolent intent. As I rounded the corner, I saw the front door swinging open, the lock splintered and broken. My breath caught in my throat. "It's inside," I whispered. Then, a wave of dizziness hit me hard, twisting my whole world. I couldn't hold the phone in my hand anymore. Desperate to grab onto something, I collapsed, and my vision grew dark. I was back in the forest, the fire crackling softly beside me. My friends were there, their faces lit by the flickering flames. But something was different. They looked at me with a mixture of fear and suspicion. "Jack, are you okay?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. I nodded slowly, trying to piece together what had happened. "I think so. What about you guys?" "We're fine," Mark replied, his eyes darting to the shadows around us. "But we need to get out of here now." As we hurriedly packed up our things, a sense of déjà vu washed over me. The events of the night seemed to loop in my mind, each memory bleeding into the next. We stumbled through the dark woods, the path seeming to twist and change beneath our feet. When we finally reached the edge of the forest, our cars were waiting, just as before. We piled in, desperate to escape, but as we sped away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. In the rearview mirror, I saw them again, our Doppelgangers, standing at the edge of the woods, watching us with those cold, empty eyes. They smiled, their expressions filled with a promise of return. We didn't speak much on the drive back. The silence was heavy, each of us lost in our thoughts, haunted by the events of the night. When we finally parted ways, I knew things would never be the same. Then, the twisted dream changed to my bedroom, watching my double at the window. The Doppelganger tilted its head, the smile never faltering. "We want you to remember," it whispered, the sound slipping through the glass like a cold breeze. "Remember what you saw, what you did?" The words sent a shiver down my spine. "I don't understand." "What did we do?" It placed a hand against the window, and the glass began to frost over, intricate patterns of ice spreading out from its touch. "You will," it said. Soon, the frost on the window thickened, and through the icy veil, I saw other figures emerging from the darkness. They were all there, Sarah, Mark, Tom, each one accompanied by their Doppelganger. They surrounded my house, their faces eerily calm, their eyes locked onto mine. Panic surged through me, and I grabbed my phone, dialing Mark's number this time. It rang and rang, but there was no answer. Desperate, I tried Tom next, but the result was the same. My friends were unreachable, and I was alone. A soft tapping came from behind me, and I spun around to see another Doppelganger standing in the doorway of my bedroom. This one was different, though. It was me, but not the same twisted version from outside. This one looked exactly like me, down to the clothes I was wearing. "Jack," it said, its voice a perfect echo of mine. "It's time to remember." My head spun with a torrent of memories, fragments of the night in the woods, pieces that didn't fit together, images of the fire, the shadows, the feeling of being chased, but also flashes of something else, something I had buried deep in my mind, a ritual, ancient symbols drawn in the dirt, and us, my friends and I, standing in a circle, chanting words we didn't understand. "What did we do?" I whispered, the realization dawning on me. "You called us," the Doppelganger replied, its eyes boring into mine. "You brought us here, and now, we are part of you." "No," I said, backing away. "That's not true. We didn't mean to." "It doesn't matter," it interrupted, stepping closer. "What matters is that we are here, and we will never leave." I tried to run, but the room seemed to twist and warp around me, the walls closing in. The last thing I saw was my own terrified face staring back at me, a mirror of my fear and regret. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the forest, the fire crackling softly beside me. My friends were there, but something was different. They looked at me with a mixture of fear and suspicion, their eyes glinting with an unsettling darkness. "Jack, are you okay?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. I nodded slowly, trying to piece together what had happened. "I think so. What about you guys?" "We're fine," Mark replied, his eyes darting to the shadows around us. "But we need to get out of here now." As we hurriedly packed up our things, a sense of déjà vu washed over me. The events of the night seemed to loop in my mind, each memory bleeding into the next. We stumbled through the dark woods, the path seeming to twist and change beneath our feet. When we finally reached the edge of the forest, our cars were waiting, just as before. We piled in, desperate to escape, but as we sped away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. In the rearview mirror, I saw them again, our doppelgangers, standing at the edge of the woods, watching us with those cold, empty eyes. They smiled, their expressions filled with a promise of return. We didn't speak much on the drive back. The silence was heavy, each of us lost in our thoughts, haunted by the events of the night. When we finally parted ways, I knew things would never be the same. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard the knock at my window again. My heart pounded as I turned to look, and there it was, the doppelganger, its expression blank, its eyes empty. It smiled, a twisted reflection of my own face, and mouthed the words, "Some of us remember. And now, you're one of us." The realization hit me like a cold wave. I wasn't just a target, I was becoming one of them. And as I stared into those empty eyes, I knew there was no escape from the darkness that had claimed us all. The doppelganger pressed its hand against the glass, and the frost began to spread again, intricate patterns of ice crawling across the window pane. I woke up startled, and realized I'd been laying unconscious on the living room floor, my front door wide open, revealing the cold night. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the floor, startling me. I grabbed it, seeing a text from Sarah. "Are you seeing this too?" I quickly replied, my fingers trembling. "Yes, we need to talk now." I had the weirdest dream, a continuous loop of us going back to the forest and running away. Her response came almost immediately, "Meet at the diner in 20 minutes. Bring Mark and Tom." I nodded to myself, feeling a sliver of hope. Maybe together, we could figure out what was happening, find a way to stop it. I grabbed my jacket and keys, casting one last glance at the window. The doppelganger was gone, but the frost remained, a chilling reminder of the nightmare that was far from over. As I stepped outside, the cold night air bit into my skin. I hurried to my car, my breath visible in the frigid air. The drive to the diner was a blur, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. What had we unleashed, and how could we stop it? When I arrived, Sarah, Mark, and Tom were already there, their faces pale and drawn. We exchanged brief, grim nods and sat down at a corner booth, away from the few other late-night patrons. "We need to figure out what we did," Mark said, his voice urgent. "And how to undo it." Tom nodded, his eyes dark with worry. "I remember something about a ritual. Symbols in the dirt, chanting. We must have called them." Sarah shivered. "But how do we send them back?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "We need to retrace our steps, remember exactly what we did. Maybe we can find a way to reverse it." While we were talking, Mark kept his eyes fixated on the window behind me. I was too afraid to ask him what he was seeing. "Why would we even start this ritual?" Sarah asked. As we huddled together in the dimly lit diner, the memories of that fateful night came rushing back, sharp and vivid. "We did it to bring someone back," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. My friends leaned in closer, the tension palpable. "We found that old book in the abandoned cabin, the one with the ritual to resurrect the dead." We were desperate. The ritual seemed like our only hope. We drew the symbols in the dirt, chanted the incantations under the full moon, and waited. Sarah's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. "Wait, are you saying we?" "Yes," I interrupted, nodding. "We performed a resurrection ritual, but something went wrong. We didn't just bring one soul back, we opened a door." Tom's face paled, his hands shaking. "What door, Jack? What did we do?" I took a deep breath, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. "We brought back others. Dark, twisted echoes of ourselves. And now, they're haunting us as doppelgangers. A tense silence fell over the table, each of us grappling with the horrifying revelation. The flickering neon light outside cast eerie shadows across our faces, amplifying the fear in our eyes. Mark, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke, his voice trembling. "But why? Why are they haunting us?" Before I could answer, the door to the diner creaked open, and a gust of cold wind swept in, sending shivers down our spines. I turned to see a shadowy figure standing in the doorway, its features obscured by the darkness. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face that was both familiar and foreign. My own Doppelganger. We remember, it said, its voice a chilling echo of my own. And now, you will too. My friends gasped, their eyes wide with terror. The Doppelganger's smile widened, a twisted reflection of my own fear. It's time to face what you've done, it continued, stepping closer. I felt a surge of panic, my mind racing. We have to get out of here, I whispered urgently to my friends. We scrambled to our feet, the chairs clattering to the floor. As we rushed to the exit, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being herded, driven towards something inevitable. We burst out of the diner and into the cold night, the Doppelganger's following us with unnerving precision. The streets were empty, the town eerily silent as we sprinted towards our cars. Where do we go? Sarah cried, her voice filled with desperation. We need to go back, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Back to the woods, back to where it all started. But why? Tom protested, his eyes wide with fear. Why would we go back there? Because, I replied, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. We need to find a way to close the door. To end this. Mark's face twisted in confusion and fear, but he nodded. Let's go. We piled into our cars, the engines roaring to life as we sped towards the woods. The drive was a blur, the road twisting and turning under the pale moonlight. My mind raced with fragments of memories, the ritual replaying over and over in my head. As we neared the edge of the forest, the sense of dread grew stronger. We parked and stepped out into the night, the towering trees looming over us like silent sentinels. We have to find the exact spot, I said, my voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. The clearing where we performed the ritual. The path was barely visible, the forest a maze of shadows and whispers. We stumbled through the undergrowth, our flashlights casting eerie beams of light that danced across the gnarled trees. Finally, we reached the clearing. The symbols we had drawn were still faintly visible in the dirt, the remnants of our desperate attempt to cheat death. We need to reverse it, I said, my voice trembling. Somehow, we need to close the door we opened. Sarah knelt beside the symbols, her fingers tracing the lines in the dirt. How do we do that? Before I could answer, Mark's voice cut through the darkness. There's something you need to know, he said, his tone filled with a strange mix of fear and resignation. I knew what he was going to say. Deep down, I had always known, but I never wanted to admit it. It's okay, I said. What? What are you talking about? Sarah whispered. The ritual. Do you remember the start of our trip? Yeah. How many of us were there? 4. No, Tom interrupted. Mark wasn't with us. Confusion swept over Sir's face, which turned into frustration. Are you saying? Yes. You all went to my funeral. I'm sorry. You tried to bring me back now, and it backfired. It's all my fault. Mark nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. It's not your fault. It was my idea. Before we could react, the air around us grew colder, and the shadows deepened. The answer lay in the ritual, in the words we had chanted under the full moon. We had to find a way to reverse them, to undo what we had done. As we discussed our plan, the feeling of being watched never left me. We had started something we didn't understand, something ancient and powerful. And now, we had to finish it, or be consumed by it. The night stretched on, the shadows deepening, and as we left the diner to face whatever awaited us, the sense of dread settled over us, like a suffocating shroud. The answers we sought lay somewhere in the darkness, but so did the creatures we had brought into our world. And as we ventured back into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap.